Yo guys, as y'all know, we've been receiving some pretty crazy Shrine of Order nerfs recently, and basically every build got hit. Now I don't think gunning absolutely every build is the way to bring back Deepwoken from these pitiful numbers it's at right now, but that is a topic for another day. But through all these nerfs, one build came out untouched. A build so broken, it ended up getting me top 50 with close to no losses to my name. A build so broken, it lets me boss rate guilds without dropping below 4 bars. A build that has unavoidable move stacks. I'm of course talking about this insanely broken Gran Sudaruska build, which outputs amazing damage, has crazy combos, and it has great mobility. All that while of course still being extremely tanky. And as if this wasn't enough, this build can also somehow one-cycle Chaser. Name me one other PvP build that can do that. And finally, the most important of all, this build is insanely fun. So yeah, you get the point. If you want a build that is sure to excel in both ganking and also in chime, well, I've got you guys covered today. Alright, so as you might have guessed, this whole build centers around the Gran Sudaruska, a weapon that just recently has received some pretty crazy buffs, and now I can confidently say that it is a top 3 legendary weapon. With 5 proficiency, alongside something else that I'll reveal later down the video, I end up doing over 60 damage in M1 while only having 30 points invested into weapon. Now just for comparison, my 100 heavy 6 proficiency Soundheart heavy build legit does less damage than that, and on top of doing insane M1 damage, this weapon also has a really good crit that does almost 150 damage, guard breaks, and leads up to combos. I also have texts and ways to confirm this crit that I will cover later in this video, so make sure that you keep watching. But now that I've shown why I chose this weapon, I think it's time to show the metras I use and also how I land them in fights against good players. Now before we get into the metras I'm using, this is something you'll hear me say a lot, but I've left out a lot of the synergies with these metras for later down the line in the combos and text segment. But anyways, to kick things off, I went with Ice Flocks. Now you might think that it is nothing more than a PvE mantra. However, recently it was actually found out that it is extremely broken for PvP as well, as it does a fuck ton of damage, creates insane pressure, and most important of all, you can use anything while you're casting it. More on this mantra in the combos and text part, and trust me, you'll not want to miss it, as it is one of the most broken synergy about this build. And as for my next mantra, I of course went with Ice Tigers. It is a fast projectile mantra which, with the frozen concussion talent, freezes your opponent completely, allowing you to combo them for free. I learned this mantra a lot from casting it and then sliding behind my opponent's block, or by catching people off guard with it. Next up I went with Celestial Assault, a broken combo mantra that comes with Star Kindred. It has a near unreactable windup, so paired with heavy slow M1s, it is absolutely amazing. I often land it from just using it raw in a parry trade, where you can just use it after an M1 and it is pretty much true. You usually want to feint after the first part hits, as that will confirm an M1. But anyways, for my fourth mantra, I went with Ice Lance, and I mean, do I really need to explain why? This mantra is one of the best mantra in the entire game. It deals a lot of damage and is incredibly fast. I land this mantra a lot after an M1 or from the back hit tech, which I will of course be explaining as well. I then went with Frostdraw, a really underrated gap closer that deals good damage, has pretty good range, and applies chill for a long time. And similar to Ice Tigers, I also learned this mantra a lot by catching people off guard with it. This mantra is also made broken by a single spark, and more on why later. Next up is Sinister Halo, a stupidly underrated mantra that has close to no parry stun to it. It's very quick with no song Q and applies insane pressure. I get a ton of free damage from just using this mantra raw in a parry trade, and you can sometimes just get a free uppercut from doing this. It is also a completely free win gem proc. For my support, I obviously went with Reinforce for its free 10% damage resistance to grants, but also for its free 10% damage buff, allowing me to do the crazy damage that I showed earlier. And with the Will-O-Wisp talent, I'm able to get a free Wisp slot, so therefore I got Frost Wisp for the icy places, which procs a lot of ice talents. Then I got Crystal Impale, a combo mantra that, if used airborne, deals 50% more damage and applies a knockdown. This mantra synergizes perfectly with this build and allows me to do crazy combos, which I'll show later. To get this mantra, make sure you grab Crystal Path, get Crystal Impale, and then reroll Crystal Path off. Now I'm personally not running any mobility mantra, as all the Frostdraw ones are pretty ass, and I'm also really tight on talents. However, you can change that up if you'd like. And then my last mantra is Ice Chain, another heavily slept on mantra that applies the most pressure out of legit any mantra in the game. It deals good damage, applies bottom freeze, and you can just have it active while you're playing aggressive. This mantra is free pressure with effectively no drawback, so make sure to spam it as much as possible. And not to mention that this mantra is made even better by a certain talent. That talent being Unyielding Frost that I get from having 100 points invested into Frostdraw. This talent makes my Frost mantras apply chill through block, which pretty much allows me to have Saintji active at all times, on top of proccing other various ice talents. Having 100 points into Frost doesn't just give me that talent though, it also lets me do a lot more damage per M1s, as the Gran Sudaruska, like many other legendary weapons, has a lot of attunement scaling. And not only that, I also get an extra 10% damage from Tough Love for free. So pairing every buff that I should easily be having on at all times, this is how I end up dealing well over 60 damage in M1, while still doing really good mantra damage since I went with Prophet's Cloak. And since I'm outputting that much damage, you'd expect the build to be squishy then, right? Wrong. Since you save so much points with the Gran, you're also able to fit Reinforced Armor and Ever-Changing Aegis on top of the many resistances you get from ice, your kit, and your outfit. Ether also is never an issue with this build, as with 4th edition, alongside the ether talents like magical resolve, ether absorption, and more, I practically never run out of ether. And piecing everything together, these are the stats I end up getting, and as you can see, this build is perfect down to the point. But not only do I get all these talents, the point save from Gran also allows me to get one of, if not straight up the best oath in the entire game. I'm of course talking about Star Kindred, quite literally the most complete oath in the game. You get 4 different moves, 3 of which being excellent moves for the reasons I've explained before, and the 4th, Ascension, also being really good for ganks too. However, I did not end up using it. And because of its air dashes, Star Kindred also gets the best vertical mobility out of any of the oaths in the game, ever since Jet Striker's mobility has been completely gutted. And what's the trade-off to all that? You just have to have your wings active, which is really easy to do by popping it with Death from Above, or by just using a mantra. And not only does it have all of those benefits, the devs also felt like giving it plus 8 HP, because why not? All in all, Star Kindred is a great choice and fits this build perfectly. One, because of me going Star Kindred, I also don't get affected by the unwavering resolve nerfs, since I went 40 strength post shrine instead of free shrine. Earlier I briefly mentioned how Ice Flock has amazing synergy with one of the Star Kindred moves, Death from Above, and now I think it's time I get into detail into what I meant. Now how you land this combo is you want to first bait your opponent's parry, either by earth swinging or by fainting, cast your Ice Flux, and then do your Death from Above. This move stack works because you're forcing your opponent to block, and Death from Above alongside Ice Flux both do a lot of posture. The only real counter to this move stack is Ghost, however you should not have to worry about it because the timing to roll this is very weird. Now keep in mind that sometimes your opponent does get AP frames from your Ice Flux, but the majority of the time this isn't an issue and you should still be getting free damage out of this. This is one of the main broken synergy about this build, and it's something you should be abusing as much as possible. And to make the last deck even better, if you slide while using Death from Above, you're able to completely hide the items of it, making it very hard to parry. This is a broken tech that I abuse a lot. Now the main way I land my critical is by doing it right after Ice Lance, and 9 times out of 10 it will land. You're then able to follow up the critical with Crystal Impale, and then the possibilities are pretty much endless. Also, the Gran Sudaruska critical has a lingering hitbox, which many people do tend to forget about. To abuse it, spam your roll key when your critical visuals are about to end, and if you do it right, you're going to be able to hit the last tick of the crit. As for a crazy combo this build has, I land Crystal Impale a lot after hitting a Celestial Assault with the Insignia Gem on it, and since Crystal Impale applies a knockdown when landed airborne, I'm able to confirm Ice Lance for free and then follow that up into my crit. This is a true 2-bar combo I land almost every match and even against good players. Next up, if you put an Insignia Gem and a Blast Spark on your Frost Scribe, not only will it hide half of your items, it can also make really fast mantras like Celestial Assault and Ice Lance pretty much true right after. Also, this mantra has no unlock to it whatsoever, so that is something really broken you can abuse to get free hits in. And as the cherry on top, this mantra sometimes goes through iframes. Now this is more of a global tech, one that you should be doing on every build. I'm sure you've heard of it, but just in case you haven't, the back hit tech is a tech you should incorporate into your gameplay at all costs, as if you do it right, it can be unavoidable damage because of how the game works. M1, and in the middle of your M1, use a mantra to feint it. Now do that, but go around your opponent's block while you're doing it. And as for the final tech I'll give today, which applies to every build, this is basically the same concept as the last tech, except you feint a mantra instead of an M1. This is another insanely good tech that you should definitely incorporate as well. Anyways, that's pretty much all I have to say about this build for today. The builder link with all talents and stat order will be down in my Discord server, alongside a fight against a good player, so you can get a good grasp of how to play the build. If you guys enjoyed this video, then do consider leaving a like. It takes less than 2 seconds to do, and it helps me out a ton. And if you want more in-depth build showcases like these, then make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of my uploads. And with that being said, take care.